This is Jed Disler, and welcome to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. Back in the late 1960s and early 1970s, a romantic revival was in play as far as piano music was concerned, and you had dozens of long-forgotten piano concertos from the mid to late 19th century being dusted off after decades of oblivion and neglect. One of these concertos was the E major concerto by Moszkowski, composed in 1898. Moszkowski lived from 1854 until 1925. He was born in Breslau, and he made his early career in Berlin before settling in Paris. He was primarily known for composing piano music, which is usually virtuosic and lightweight in the best of the salon tradition. But he did also write works in larger forms, including the piano concerto in E major. And this is a pretty substantial work in 4 movements. Moszkowski dedicated the concerto to his pupil, the great pianist Joseph Hoffmann, who also happened to have been the dedicatee of Sergei Rachmaninoff's Third Piano Concerto. The Moszkowski Concerto was actually quite popular in the first decade or so of the 20th century, and as one would expect from Moszkowski, the piano writing is brilliant and effective and abounding with great tunes, but the orchestration also is quite ingenious and varied. Although the concerto basically fell out of favor, it started to generate a little bit of interest in the midst of the Romantic Revival. I'm not certain if it was the International Piano Library under the direction of Gregor Benko that issued the work's very first commercial recording. Actually, I did see a recording listed in an old catalog of the Moszkowski Concerto with pianist Hans Kahn and Walter Gurr conducting, but I've never seen a copy, nor have I heard it. I'm sure some listeners will fill me in on this. But the International Piano Library LP was both the first and the last of a projected series of releases called The Young Virtuosos. The catalog number is IPL 1001. And this LP included the Moszkowski Concerto in a live performance with the pianist Karen Goodwin, accompanied by a student orchestra. The orchestra leaves a lot to be desired, as does the sound quality, but at least this was one way to hear what the Moszkowski Concerto sounded like back in the day, more or less. There also was a studio recording that came out around the same time. I cannot tell you whether it came out before or after the IPL disc, but in this studio recording, the featured pianist was Michael Ponti, and he was accompanied by the Philharmonia Hungarica with Hans Richard Strack conducting. And this was a much, much better recording than the IPL performance. It came out on the Candide label, which was distributed by Vox, and you can still find the Michael Ponti Moszkowski Concerto either on CD or probably more immediately you can find it as a download or as a stream. But then we had to wait about a decade before the pianist David Bar-Ilan recorded the Moszkowski Concerto for the Audiophon label with the Bavarian Radio Orchestra conducted by Alfredo Antonini. If you can find this release, it is well worth hearing. David Bar-Ilan, I think, is more colorful and suave in this music than Michael Ponti. And you notice this mainly in the scherzo movement's rippling passage work. Bar-Ilan's overt and flashy virtuosity stands in contrast to the more refined and nuanced solo work that You hear from the recording by Piers Lane that is part of the Hyperion label's huge and wide-ranging romantic piano concerto series. And this performance has Jerzy Maksymyuk as the conductor with the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra. Piers Lane's style of playing is similar to another wonderful pianist who recorded the Moszkowski Concerto, Janina Fiłkowska. She made an excellent, though rather hard to find recording of the Moszkowski, issued on the CBC label, with Rafi Armenian conducting the Kitchener-Waterloo Symphony. There's another recording of the Moszkowski. It's on the Undine label, and it features pianist Matti Raikallio. Leonid Grin conducts the Tampere Philharmonic Orchestra. For my taste, this pianist underplays the scherzo, but he's really eloquent and colorful and songful in the Andante. Although it's not quite so well engineered as either the Undine or Hyperion Moszkowski recordings, I really like the performance of the concerto on Naxos that features the German pianist Markus Polak and the Polish National Radio Symphony Katowice. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, it's a Polish orchestra, and the conductor is Antoni Witt. He is a fantastic conductor. Polak is closer to the exuberant and incisive kind of virtuosity characterizing both the Michael Ponti and David Bar-Ilan recordings, and he just totally lets rip in the finale. So this is a really good Moszkowski concerto to consider. However, it is the most recent recording of the Moszkowski that I think stands out from the pack. And the pianist Joseph Moog and the conductor Nicholas Milton truly play off one another in a real conversational chamber-like fashion. And there's a leanness and a transparency to the orchestral textures that really appeals to me. The orchestra is the German Radio Philharmonic of Saarbrücken, and Joseph Moog is no less a colorist than Piers Lane, and this recording is on the Onyx label. It's also coupled with a really good Grieg concerto. I wouldn't say this is my tip-top favorite Grieg concerto, but it's really quite good. So among the available recordings of the Moszkowski Concerto, I would say that between Joseph Moog and Piers Lane, that it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other when it comes to choosing a version that's sonically up to date and that's in print. But if you can find the David Bar-Ilan or the Janina Fiłkowska versions, definitely grab them. This is Jed Disler, and you've been listening to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. Please let your piano-loving friends and colleagues know about this podcast and spread the good word. Until the next episode, please take care and stay safe.